Well, hello everyone, and thank you very much to the ABQ for inviting me to share some time with you during this amazing virtual Congress. Well, what an amazing year it's been. Who would have ever predicted that 12 months ago, the world would have been turned on its head by a global pandemic that would have cost the lives of tens of millions of people and claimed the lives of well over 1 million. It's really just unbelievable. And life is just fragile and unpredictable. And as we've witnessed with the coronavirus pandemic, none of us really know what's around the corner. So few of us will have had a life that's completely predictable. In fact, one of the things I suspect that drew many of us as chiropractors to the profession was that it was unpredictable, not knowing who would walk through the door, what symptoms they would present, how we would be able to impact on their lives and make a difference, not knowing what colleagues we would meet along the way and what friendships would be forged that would last a lifetime. Wherever we were educated, whatever our backgrounds, chiropractic has gifted us a life less ordinary. So in a year that marks 125 years of chiropractic, which is our Kwaski centennial, we celebrate unprecedented opportunities. At the same time, our collective responsibilities as chiropractors have never been greater. Here in 2020, we stand together at a time where the global burden of disability from poor spinal health dominates all other forms of disability. We stand together at a time where tens of thousands of people continue to lose their lives to opioids and other prescription medications, victims of a misguided and cynical strategy to combat chronic pain. We stand together at a time where there has never been a greater need for the health and healing that doctors of chiropractic can bring, here in Latin America and beyond. Like the patients we encounter each day, each one of us in this room has trodden a different path to where we are, whether we are practitioners of many decades experience or whether we're embarking on our exciting chiropractic journey as students of chiropractic. For me, this year marks 30 years since I proudly qualified as a chiropractor. When I set out on my chiropractic journey in a seaside town on the south coast of England at the tender age of 18 back in 1986, it was not because of some road to Damascus moment. I had not been miraculously cured of an injury, disease, or impairment. I was not the fourth, fifth, or sixth generation of chiropractors destined to continue a family tradition. Google didn't exist, so I couldn't just happen upon it in a random search. I had no clue about chiropractic and what it was to be a chiropractor. Unlike many of you with every good reason to be where you are, I wobbled into chiropractic like Bambi on speed. I grew up in a farming community in the southwest of England. My father was and always had been a herdsman, and I was raised in a farm labourer's cottage. And while it may be the case that many of you may be dreaming of owning a car like this one day, where I grew up, the aspiration was slightly different. And these were the babies that me and my classmates and I lusted after. You see, at school in my community, it was assumed that you go into some sort of agriculture. If you were not fortunate enough to have been born into a farming family, you'd become a farm worker, an agricultural engineer, a tractor driver, or if you had the grades and the aptitude, a veterinarian. I had neither. What I did have was hope, optimism, and excitement. I've been blessed in my career. They say that your character is formed by the books you read and the people you meet. Now, I'm no bookworm, unless they've got big font and lots of pictures. But I quickly learned that the way to make progress was always to be the dumbest in the room. And this has never proved to be a difficult objective for me to fulfill. I feel humbled whenever I find myself, like I am today, speaking to a group of outstandingly bright people. The sense of suffering from imposter syndrome has never felt greater. Now, chiropractic's come a long way in 125 years. along with the rights that we now enjoy, including statutory recognition in every territory in Australia, every province in Canada, every state in the US, and in many other countries, we must recognize, embrace, and accept the expectations that modern society has placed on us as healthcare professionals. Medicine has advanced exponentially. Millions of lives have been saved as a result of scientific breakthroughs. From the primitive days of bloodletting to today's stem cell transplants, robot technology, and artificial intelligence, the pursuit of knowledge has shaped our societies. The world's scientists dedicate their lives to groundbreaking discoveries. Let us not forget that research and a commitment to investigate, discover, and learn are indispensable attributes of a modern healthcare profession. We live now in a world far removed from the pioneer days of the 1890s, where cures for all ailments were bottled and sold by snake oil salesmen at fairground stalls, and where extravagant claims devoid of credible evidence were fed to an unsuspecting, vulnerable, and ignorant public. This was a different age, unregulated, unlicensed, and unruly. Science has transformed the lives of us all. We have access to untapped knowledge. Can you imagine now having to fill out a library request and wait several weeks every time you wanted to access a single scientific paper? So much is available now at the click of a mouse. But with the best will in the world, keeping up with the best available evidence is near impossible. How are we to survive when we're drowning in data? The wisdom and resilience of the leaderships of many contemporary chiropractic associations to align chiropractic with established science and current evidence in the face has been a display of courage in the face of resistance. It's often said that everyone wants progress, but no one wants change. Moving from a comfort zone is never easy. Being willing to jettison outdated dogma and embrace contemporary evidence is challenging. Yet around the world, organizations, including the ABQ, have taken bold steps to advance the profession. It is, of course, an exercise of winning hearts and minds. One of the great strengths of chiropractic has been its history and heritage, yet our passion for history and heritage has also sometimes been our enemy. Where we have allowed it to decelerate our progress, we have been left open to criticism. Exaggerated claims of effectiveness, despite gaps in the evidence base, have seen mass complaints against chiropractors and adverse publicity on social and in mainstream media. Body shaming of normal variance and minute postural deviations in human anatomy have overplayed the gravity of patients' conditions. Imaging, used as a tool to convince the vulnerable of the need to sign up to protracted programs of treatment. Amplification of the gravity of joint dysfunction in relation to human health. Trust and confidence in chiropractic are damaged when we allow unprofessionalism to go unchecked. But in 2020, in the United States and throughout the world, there are fewer and fewer unwitting, exploitable, suggestible, vulnerable patients. Information is available at the click of a mouse. Patients are empowered by access to online information, and it's foolhardy to ever believe that a patient has not looked you up on Google before contacting you to book an appointment. The price of progress and chiropractic success is that we are scrutinized like never before. Every Facebook post, every tweet, every blog we write, every website claim we make, every talk we give, we are being scrutinized. In a world of facts, alternative facts, and fake news, chiropractors are being held to a standard, and it is our obligation, our duty, to meet that standard. And I'm here to tell you that together we can. Not a day goes by without our being told about the threat of climate change. The world is heating up. Late last year, Australia was on fire for weeks, and horrendous images of mass destruction were flashed across our screens. Hundreds of thousands of acres were destroyed, and there were suspicions that whole species may have been wiped out. In global healthcare, the climate is changing too, and the change is accelerating. The environment in which we're operating now is enormously different to even that of a decade ago. Political, social, environmental, economic factors, the determinants of health, have evolved. Medical and health education have been revolutionized. In chiropractic, accreditation has set standards and competencies that have shifted the profession in a positive direction towards competency-based education. Just as we are warned that the global climate is hitting a tipping point, so must we recognize and plan for an imminent tipping point for chiropractic if we are to realize our potential and achieve success. Are we to rely on our history or use the opportunity to step up, innovate, and be a key part of people's healthcare teams? Will we rely on yesterday's evidence and our belief systems, or will we seize the chance to be key players in tomorrow's health systems? The world is waking up to the uncontrolled inferno that is the scourge of back and neck pain. We know that traditional mainstream management has been largely unsuccessful. While back pain doesn't kill, it causes misery for millions. In most countries around the world, back pain remains the biggest single cause of years lived with disability. There is no single cure, no magic bullet, and global data reminds us that we have really failed when it comes to dealing with spinal pain and disability. There's a growing consensus, though, that we know what works and what doesn't. The test for us as a profession is whether we are prepared to accept inconvenient truths, jettison old ideas, and take bold steps to fill the void that still exists for the definitive non-surgical spine care expert. Emerging evidence has focused not simply on the biomechanics of acute and chronic low back pain, but has revealed startling insights into the fuller biopsychosocial elements, the drivers of chronicity: fear avoidance, catastrophization, depression, attitudes and beliefs. Add to that the global issues of over-imaging, over-reliance on medication of low value, and the North American tragedy that is opioid addiction. We need to listen to pain research. It's increasingly telling us that back pain is not all in the back. It's no longer all about joint dysfunction or the presence of a prolapsed disc or degeneration or bad posture or any one of the plethora of findings that for years we have been attributed to back and neck pain. X-rays and MRI scans have convinced us that abnormalities are the roots of all evil, even though we know that pain-free people have them too. We know that just between 1% and 5% of all back pain is due to serious underlying pathology, yet 40 to 60% of patients are still being referred by their GPs for MRI scans. And with incidentalomas being rife, experts tell us that 80% of MRI scans are probably useless. Now, when it comes to chronic pain, researchers now tell us that persisting back symptoms occur because the fire alarm in our brain is not switching off after the fire has been extinguished. This is why continuing to fill people up with paracetamol and opioids is so hopeless. We're treating a fire that isn't there. We now know that people with chronic pain get depressed, and that depressed people get back pain. We now know that there are comorbidities that, if left unaddressed, adversely affect outcomes. We now understand contextual factors are highly relevant. We cannot simply ignore the evidence that is not just coming from one source, but many. The growing volume of evidence has forced us to be introspective, and that's been uncomfortable for us all. What we thought we understood perhaps is not reality. And it's not just us. Spine surgeons, general practitioners, osteopaths, physical therapists, rehab experts, or any one of the many other professions that have been part of the US's $90 billion spine care market have also been forced to re-examine their respective modus operandi. In the face of an expanding aging population and the monstrous cost of investigative technology and care of questionable effectiveness, third-party payers are focusing on best value care. Yet, despite overwhelming evidence, when it comes to the spine, we remain in status quo. A study published in 2015 by Cigna showed that of 87,000 fusions, 80% of recipients were in more pain afterwards, and 20% proceeded to undergo more surgery. Prescribing habits are not changing anywhere near fast enough. Cement is still being injected into the back. Spines are still being fused. Discs are still being removed. Evidence-based chiropractors and non-surgical solutions are still being vastly underutilized. So the holes are there for us all to see. We need to fundamentally change the way we approach our patients, who in 2020 are fundamentally different from those of 1895. This is chiropractic's golden opportunity. So in 2017, the WFC started a strategic planning exercise that would culminate in a plan that was adopted unanimously by its Assembly of Members last year in Berlin. The core plan was underpinned by 4 pillars: support, empowerment, promotion, and advancement. Running through all these pillars were what have become known as the EPIC principles. Using the hashtag #BeEpic, the WFC advocates all chiropractors to be evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. So let's spend a few minutes unpacking EPIC to see why it really is our duty, our driver, and our future. The E of EPIC is evidence-based practice. A few years ago, I had the honor of speaking on the subject of evidence-based practice at Oxford University. The oldest centre of learning in the English-speaking world, Oxford University dates back to the year 1096. Some of the world's greatest leaders have been educated within its walls. Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, Malala Yousafzai, prime ministers and heads of state. And for any Harry Potter fans, yes, the dining halls in the Oxford colleges are just like that. Just being there was an amazing experience. So when I was talking about evidence-based practice, I raised a few eyebrows when I realized that my chiropractic education back in the mid-80s was BS. And a few more eyebrows went up when I told the audience that medical education at the time was also BS. So was osteopathic education, as was physiotherapy education. Without a doubt, it was all BS. So before your jaws do actually drop to the floor, let me explain. When I say BS, I'm not referring to what over 90% of you think I'm talking about. I mean before Sackett. Dr. David Sackett is arguably one of the greatest epidemiologists ever and the godfather of evidence-based medicine. Back in 1996, he published this article, Evidence-Based Medicine, What It Is and What It Isn't. All too often, evidence-based practice is misrepresented and completely mischaracterized. Critics oppose it because they think it means that everything we do in chiropractic has to be supported by randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses. Where such evidence exists, it cannot simply be overlooked in favor of convenient, low-level evidence, but to characterize EBM as being wholly dependent on level 1 evidence would be completely wrong. Evidence-based practice is the judicious integration of the clinician's experience and expertise, coupled with the best available scientific evidence and taking into account values and preferences in the individualized care of patients. So what does this mean in practice for chiropractors? Well, it means a commitment to lifelong learning, a commitment to a better understanding of emerging science. It means seeking to be better and a willingness to move from a comfort zone in the face of new knowledge that challenges our preconceptions. It calls upon us as a profession to call out cherry picking of evidence, choosing only to pay attention to what confirms our beliefs and our biases rather than what the science is really saying. It also calls upon us to reject fake news and the misrepresentation of research, findings for the sake of convenience. It means real investment in knowledge translation and a championing of work done by people like Dr. Carol Conciliere and Dr. Sean Thistle, who in my humble opinion are at the vanguard of knowledge translation in chiropractic. What we so desperately need is a joined up approach to the synthesis of evidence into practice. And this is where our investment as a profession truly needs to focus. We owe it to our patients, we owe it to the public, and we owe it to ourselves. We need to acknowledge that evidence is agnostic and that research coming out of other professions can be applicable to what we do. Increasingly, we're seeing interprofessional research teams where the professional badges that people wear are discarded in favor of the skills they bring as investigators. The walls are coming down. Take, for example, the Lancet series of low back pain papers published in 2018. Jan Hartvigsen, a graduate of Palmer College of Chiropractic and a professor at the University of Southern Denmark, was selected as co-chair of the steering group. The resulting 3 papers took the spinal health world by storm, generated 15 million tweets, and validated what chiropractors have been saying for decades: that surgery is often useless in anything but the short term, and that pharmaceutical interventions confer very little benefit. Now, these papers are gold, platinum even, for the chiropractic profession, yet their importance has been nowhere near emphasized enough. These papers need to be read by every chiropractor. Okay, some colleagues have got on their high horse and lambasted the Lancet papers for their criticism of the widespread overuse of diagnostic imaging. But to reject what the rest of the world is telling us does not position us well. This, of course, was captured by the ACA's Choosing Wisely recommendations and others in so many countries around the world. Now, we're living in unprecedented times. Never before have so many chiropractors committed their careers to research, and never before have so many chiropractors published in world-class journals. These people are moving the needle. They're positioning chiropractic on a global stage. They're contributing to trust and legitimacy and inclusion for chiropractic. Not only are we being invited to the party, we're also getting to sit at the table. So when it comes to evidence-based practice, this is our time. Guideline after guideline is advocating non-surgical, non-drug approaches to care. The provision of manual therapy, including spinal manipulation and soft tissue techniques, the provision of therapeutic advice and exercise, reassurance and education. These are the tools of our trade. Evidence is on our side. We cannot simply squander the opportunity that research is now gifting us to be acknowledged as the non-surgical spine care experts. But it means all of us working together and committing to be epic. Each and every one of you in this virtual meeting are or will be using your experience in the care of your patients. And I'm confident that chiropractors are among the very best in the world when it comes to listening to our patients and appreciating their individuality and uniqueness. We are already a good way along the track. Let's harness our skills and talents and be our evidence-based best. So this brings us to P, people-centered care, our unrelenting duty to put people at the very heart of all we do as chiropractors. Winston Churchill famously said, "You make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give." People wondered why the WFC revised the P in EPIC to people-centered, not patient-centered. When the WFC put its strategic plan together, we consulted with a range of stakeholders. One of those stakeholders was the World Health Organization. The WFC is the only chiropractic organization to be a non-state actor in official relations with the World Health Organization. And this gives us unrivaled access to public health expertise at the very highest level. They explained that by restricting ourselves to patient-centered care, we overlook the role of chiropractors as primary healthcare professionals to positively influence communities and populations in spinal and MSK health. The WHO is, of course, absolutely right. Being people-centered, of course, incorporates being patient-centered, listening to the patient's point of view, involving them in decisions about their care, empowering them to be in control, recognizing them as unique individuals. This is where modern spine care is at right now. Gone are the days of patients, families, carers, nurses hanging on the every word of the physician and not daring to challenge them. Patients are now savvy consumers. Like any product, they expect the product you deliver to have been rigorously tested for effectiveness. They expect it to be tailored to their specific requirements. They expect excellent customer service and a satisfactory remedy if something should go wrong. And they're not shy about leaving a bad review if they're unhappy. No longer will patients tolerate a cookie cutter approach to patient care. A one-size-fits-all model is doomed to failure. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't adopt standard operating procedures, and this is essential for all well-run chiropractic offices. But when it comes to patients, honoring them as the individual human beings that they are is essential. Just stop and think for a moment and think about how we feel when we are made to feel special, when we're acknowledged, listened to, remembered, valued, when our doctor shows a genuine interest in our lives, our families, and our work, when our suffering is acknowledged and plans to fix us take account of our individual circumstances, when people are honest with us and readily admit it when others have a better solution to our problems, when our backgrounds and cultures and perspectives are respected, how do we feel? Well, we feel special, we feel valued, and we feel connected. So let's make a commitment to being people-centered as part of being epic chiropractors. In the words of my late departed hero and stunt double, Barry White, patients should be our first, our last, our everything. The I of epic is interprofessional. One of the biggest criticisms of healthcare is that it isn't joined up. Specialities exist in vacuums. Systems of the body are treated as separate, distinct entities, devoid of connectivity. Health professionals don't talk to each other and are fiercely protective of their turf. Departments are isolated and boundaries are delineated. We often refer to this as siloed care. Now, silos are in no one's interest. They breed mistrust, protectionist behavior, and narrow-mindedness. Patients find themselves repeating their case history countless times and undergoing repeated tests and procedures. Like a silver ball in a pinball machine, they are pinged, spun, and ricocheted around hospitals and clinics. It's no surprise that they are left dizzy and confused. Interprofessional care breaks down barriers and destroys silos. It acknowledges the critical importance of a joined-up holistic approach that patients so desperately crave. It takes account of the fact that our amazing bodies are a magnificent amalgamation of interdependent systems. It helps us to place in context the myriad factors, contextual factors, that are the influences, the promoters, and the barriers of how we respond to care. Now, until recently, history has not afforded chiropractors great opportunities to be part of these teams. The dark days of containment and elimination remain in the memories of our more senior colleagues. The jailing of chiropractors for practicing medicine without a license, the banishment into the wilderness of healthcare, with threats of similar punishment meted out to any medical doctor that dared to fraternize with quacks. At the same time, we haven't been innocent bystanders in all of this. For reasons both good and bad, chiropractors have gone it alone. They've had to carve their own path, and like true pioneers, they dared to be different. They took on the medical establishment head to head. They challenged the mantra of drugs and surgery, incurring the wrath of big pharma as they went. Some groups rubbished and indeed continued to rubbish global public health programs of vaccination. But like never before, chiropractors are embracing an interprofessional approach as part of being epic. Who would have ever believed that in 2020, chiropractors would be delivering care as part of multidisciplinary teams, treating forces veterans? Who would have dreamt that chiropractors would have been part of the official medical services teams of the Olympic Games? Who would have thought that chiropractors would be part of hospital-based spine care units, and in some cases, directing them? And who would have thought that chiropractors would now routinely be establishing clinics hosting the widest range of medical and allied health specialties? Interprofessional spine care conferences are popping up around the world, and chiropractors are showcasing the role they can play in addressing the global spine crisis. Here we see leaders in spine care from multiple professions coming together, sharing best practice, recognizing commonality of purpose, acknowledging the relevance of research across professions. This is where we need to be. Isolationism is dead, and those who continue to advocate it will restrain the profession like a rusty anchor dragging along the seabed. Being part of an interprofessional team is not just for the chiropractic elite. Everyone can engage in working with other spine care and health professionals. It matters not whether you're in a large multi-doctor practice or you practice as a lone practitioner. Reaching out, corresponding with other physicians, attending meetings, and building a network will raise your game and your status in the spine care world, and patients will love you for it. Taking a step back, let's take a moment to consider interprofessional education. Now, to work interprofessionally, it helps massively if you learn interprofessionally. Right now at undergraduate level, we see chiropractic students at Denmark at the University of Southern Denmark and Switzerland at the University of Zurich learning with their medical counterparts. Same teachers, same classes, same topics. A shared understanding and a mutual respect for the capabilities of each other. Chiropractic in Malaysia is taught within the International Medical University alongside medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and nursing. Our future success will be assured by breaking down barriers and committing to doing what is right in the best interests of the patients we serve. Even if we weren't taught with students of other professions, let's seize the chance to learn with them at postgraduate events. And let's commit to playing nicely in the sandbox. By discarding the baggage of the past, we can embrace a brighter future. By seeing what is possible, we can overcome challenges. By focusing on the needs of our societies, our communities, and our patients, we can assure our place as valued members of spine care teams within global health systems. As the saying goes, you will get everything in life that you want by helping other people get what they want. Now, no one will tell you that being part of an interprofessional spine care team is easy. No one agrees all of the time. It can be frustrating. There will be times where you wonder whether it's really worth it, and you'll roll your eyes on a regular basis. Rule 101 is to leave your ego at the door. Yes, we bring skills and expertise to the table, not least of which are the strong psychomotor skills honed from years of practice that make us superb adjusters. But when it comes to working interprofessionally, a healthy dose of humility never goes amiss. The C of EPIC is collaborative. We've already touched on the value of chiropractors working with others, so what do we mean by collaborative when it comes to being EPIC? Well, collaborative care champions the roles of chiropractors committing to positive engagement with patients, carers, and families. It's about recognizing the value of autonomy, self-direction, shared decision-making, and empowerment, and not just promoting dependence on us or anyone else. It's about chiropractors as active participants in public health, collaborating in global programs, working at WHO to enable populations to enjoy happier, healthier, and more active lives. We know so much more about the management of spinal pain, disability, and health than we ever have. So let's harness this and harness this knowledge with innovation and an acknowledgement that we're all in this together. But collaboration is more than that. For us to succeed as a profession, we must collaborate with each other, our classmates, our colleagues, even our competitors. Collaboration between researchers, academics, policymakers, politicians, and practitioners to seize the opportunities before us will allow us to realize our collective potential. Events like this online meeting bring chiropractors and chiropractic students together and gift us the opportunity to enjoy priceless discussions, not as usual in the corridors and at the bar, but perhaps in chat rooms and in other forums, sharing a vision, coming together, and respecting the contributions of others. When we give each other a hand, we rise together. So evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. Our epic future depends on collaborating to raise the bar. When we collaborate, we win. When we commit to epic, we commit to a sustainable future of hope, optimism, and service, and a building of cultural authority that will ensure a sustainable future. So let's make our 125th anniversary be a springboard for change, engagement, and success. We have so much to celebrate and so many great people doing marvelous things for chiropractic. We have countless opportunities that our ancestors could never have imagined. We need to be bold and innovative and prepared to take our place as spinal healthcare experts in the healthcare system. So as I close, it would be wrong not to refer to what, in my view, has been one of our greatest enablers of progress. We have in the past few years witnessed the emergence of a cadre of leaders that have changed the chiropractic landscape and have built on the amazing achievements of our past leaders. At the WFC, we have committed to embracing equity, diversity, and inclusion in all its forms. In 2016, we welcomed Dr. Musimbi Ndeko from Kenya as our first Black member of the WFC board. In 2018, we celebrated the first ever female members of our executive committee. Dr. Kill from the Netherlands was elected president in May after serving a year as interim president. At just 36 years old, the youngest chiropractor to have ever held this position. Our vice president is Dr. Michelle Myers, in my opinion, one of the finest minds in chiropractic today, and a true champion of youth development in chiropractic and student leadership. In 2019, Dr. David Pies from Saskatchewan, Canada, joined the WFC board as the first Indigenous First Nations board member. Our committees are equally diverse. Diversities of age, of gender, of colour, of orientation, of ethnicity, those with many years of experience and some with only very few. Our people are united by an infectious enthusiasm and a commitment to serve and enhance the landscape for our profession. But at a time when society is shining a light on the horror of racism and discrimination, we must, as a profession, commit to listening, learning, and being better. We must commit to ensuring that our profession's members are representative of society and not simply a luxury for the privileged few. Our mission is a world where people have universal access to chiropractic so that populations may thrive and reach their full potential. Only by tackling equity, diversity, and inclusion head-on will we see this vision realized. One of the most influential voices of our time is quoted as saying, "At first, when I heard about climate change, I was a climate denier. I didn't think it was happening. Because if there really was an existential crisis like that, one that would threaten our civilization, we wouldn't be focusing on anything else." Now, this person has become an unlikely and somewhat reluctant leader. She's young, shy, awkward, and suffers with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism. She has been vilified for being disruptive. Her speeches have been brutally honest, disrespectful, and have incurred the wrath of some of the world's most powerful figures. Greta Thunberg was named Time Person of the Year for 2019. As a leader, her words have woken the world. Her predictions of climate catastrophe have inspired a generation and have stimulated followers around the world to echo her calls. In chiropractic, the climate is changing and the provision of healthcare is transforming. Let's all be players in this transformation. We must all be leaders. Titles are irrelevant. No one should be made to feel that their gender, race, religious belief, orientation, or background disqualifies them from leading and making a difference. Without championing the attributes of leadership, titles count for nothing, and we fail. Humanity, humility, integrity, kindness, persistence, inner strength, and vision are but a few. As chiropractors, we have a duty to lead within our offices, our patients and teams, and within our communities. We've seen the emergence of some outstanding leaders in recent years, men and women of true steel, whose courage and foresight is changing the chiropractic landscape around the world. Every day, chiropractors, people just like you, are going into your offices and making a tremendous difference, changing lives for the better and contributing to a healthier world. Epic is our duty, our driver, and our future. As we forge a clear path for chiropractic for the next 125 years, let us go forwards together. Our time is now.